Good morning, Lighthouse. I want to come to you again today and recommend another book for you. The first book I recommended that we're going to hopefully do as a church-wide study, kind of a group read together, is D.A. Carson's book, The God Who Was There. This book today is a bit different. Matter of fact, it's a lot a bit different. It's, whereas Carson's book is a very theologically rich look at the entirety of the Bible to give us an idea of who is God and what are his purposes and his character and his work in our world and how we fit into that. This book is a book called JesusFreaks, and it's a book that tells the stories of people who have suffered for Christ. People all the way back to the days of the apostles, all the way up into modern times. And this book is different even in that regard, because it's not a book of statistics. It's not a book of, in this country this is happening, in this country this is happening, and here's all the political moves again. No, not at all. Those books are important to understand and to know from, but these are stories that get into the lives of people who have real names, real faces, real families. They're not long; they're relatively short to read, and it's a book that's designed to give us courage. It's a book designed to give us confidence, to be inspired by the testimonies of those who have gone through the fire, so to speak, of standing firm on their faith in Jesus. And I bring this book to you not as a way of instilling fear. I don't want to instill fear into the lives of God's people. Rather, this came out of a conversation I had with a former student of mine who just talking about life in our day and age, and as happens a lot these days, it came to a discussion about the end times, so to speak, and what the end times could mean. And I don't want to talk about when that could be or where we're at in the timeline, but here's the reality. The reality is this: Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 3 that, number one, difficult times are going to come. They are going to come as we get closer to the wrapping up of history and to the return of Christ. However that plays out, whether there's a literal rapture or not, or if it's a pre-trib rapture, post, that's irrelevant for the time being for this discussion. What we do know is that difficult times will come. And in that same chapter, Paul assures his readers, assures Timothy, that all who desire to live godly will be persecuted. They will be persecuted, and they'll be persecuted in the context of evil men proceeding from bad to worse. And when the Bible talks about evil men, it's not just people who are morally deficient, but it's people who are opposed to God and have rejected God and antagonistic to God and the people of God and the things of God, and they play that out in terms of evil towards God's people. Historically, we know that's true. Prophetically, we know that's to come. And this book is intended, and my intention in sharing it with you is that it would be a book that you would read to your kids, read to your grandkids, that you would share within your families. Yes, some of the stories are going to be very powerfully moving and could produce fear within smaller children. You got to be wise and know your family, what you should and shouldn't read. But these stories cover all ages. There's stories of parents watching their own children die for their faith, children watching their parents die for their faith. And this is a book that I really truly believe we need to read, and we need to be prepared for, because as we go through history and as we move forward in the years, things are not going to get easier for Christians. More and more we see that we are marginalized, not just marginalized, but believers are looked at as evils within society because of our belief system, because of what we hold true to be true from the scriptures. So I want to encourage you, get this book, read it to your kids. We need to be prepared, because what are we called to do? We are called to trust God. 1 Peter chapter 3 says it's better to suffer for doing what is right, because, and we have the example of even Christ himself suffered, and that we shouldn't be surprised by suffering. In fact, in 1 Peter chapter 4, it says we are to rejoice in suffering because there's fellowship with Christ in suffering, and God's glory rests on those who so suffer. We need to be ready to say with the Apostle Paul from 1 Corinthians 15, 54 to 58, that we need to be able to say, death, where is your sting? And as a result, we need to be steadfast and immovable, confident that the worst that can happen to us is that we die and we step into eternity in the presence of Christ to be welcomed by him. So anyway, get this book, read it to your kids, read it to your grandkids, learn from those who've stood faithfully for Christ.